Hello, everybody. We will begin the AVA Barcelona Summit with the first roundtable that focuses on the topics of art and technology. Every day, new technologies appear that open up new possibilities in the art world, and we will discuss how this affects the field of architecture and architectural visualization. But these new technologies are just tools that need to be guided by the art, the skills, and the creativity of the visualization artists in order to transform a concept into an image or a product that evokes emotion and tells a story. And our first participant of this first roundtable and the first participant of the first AVA Summit is Jeff Mottle. Jeff, I don't see you now. Ah, okay. Please welcome stage. Jeff is the CEO and owner of the leading online magazine for the architectural computer graphics industry, GCArchitect. GCArchitect, we all know GCArchitect, and he has been working in the architectural visualization field since 1996. His roles have ranged from production visualization artist and technical director to business development and CEO. Much of his career has been spent evangelizing the architectural visualization and design field. In addition to founding GCArchitect, Jeff also co-founded the CG School, the only school to cater exclusively to architectural visualization professionals. Welcome aboard. Ronen Berkerman is our next participant of the Art and Technology Roundtable. We all know Ronen Berkerman's blog. We sometimes get there for inspiration, for researching tools, or just to wait for the render. Ronen is a CG and 3D architectural visualization artist. Ronen is a CG and 3D architectural visualization artist based in Israel. He started as a freelancer in 2002, and besides running the popular Archviz blog ronenberkerman.com, focusing on the communication of our profession, he's leading Polytown Media, a creative studio specialized in the visualization of architecture from concept to marketing. Besides Polytown Media, Ronen also runs The Craft, a company that focuses on offering rendering services of architecture. Yeah, this is Ronen. Our next participant in this roundtable is Victor Bonafonte. Victor began his career as a full-time architect, but soon he got attracted by the beauty of images and their ability to narrate a project and to tell a story. Victor is the CEO and the co-founder of Beauty and the Beat that is based in Madrid but works for studios all over the world. Beauty and the Beat are specialized in narrating, suggesting, and evoking architectural spaces through images. Victor's inquiring mind pushes him to continually discover new challenges in the architecture imagery field. He has a spirit of permanent improvement and considers we are always on transit, never arrived. Welcome, Victor. And our next participant on this table is Nick Taylor. Nick is the director of Squint Opera, a creative company with a large and talented team crafting extraordinary and unique work across many disciplines, from video content and animation to interactive exhibition, branding, websites, design, games, and strategy. Nick is responsible for directing and producing many of the company's high-profile film and animation projects. His skills include combining compelling storytelling with outstanding imagery and developing extraordinary 3D and CG effects. As a company director, his creative ambitions leads team to ensure that Squint Opera is an industry leader. And the moderator of the Art and Technology Roundtable will be Victor Enrique. Urban form in all its versatility represents the explorational core of Victor. this Catalan-born artist who attended college studies at the Barcelona School of Architecture had already manifested a big devotion to the geometry of cities during his childhood years, a passion which has evolved into his actual artistic practice. Organic deformations, heavy structures set to fly, or long-distance displacement are just a few of the wide range of actions that Victor applies to his buildings, with the aim to uncover what is hidden in every architectonic structure. The execution of this set of actions would not be possible without combining two of his most beloved fields of knowledge, digital photography and 3D rendering. Besides this and organizing barbecues, he is also famous for playing Metallica with his ukulele. Welcome, Victor.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Bon dia, buenos dias. This is the first panel of today, Art and Technology. Technology and art. I mean, it doesn't matter what's the order of these two words, but actually these two words are very important in our industry. And these are two words that we are using almost every day without even knowing that we're using them. The thing is that we are facing lots of problems every day when customers call our office and asking us to change things and to deliver things on time. So we are trying to use our skills, we are trying to use our knowledge to solve all these daily issues. And these skills are related actually to art and to technology, and our job is efficiently related to these two concepts. Actually, I would say that there is a strong relationship between art and technology that creates a sort of balance. And if we somehow could take one professional and leave it alone somewhere in the world, sooner or later this professional will find his own balance in terms of art and technology. He will use his best skills, he will use his best knowledge, trying to achieve the best results for his work. But unfortunately, from my humble point of view, reaching this balance is kind of difficult. Why? Mostly because of customers, mostly because of assignments. We are being asked every day to do things that we don't want to do, or we would like to do it differently. And then we're facing ourselves trying to deal with these problems and use our best skills to fulfill the needs of our customers, but probably we will not be too much satisfied because we know that we could have done more than what our customer asked us to do. So when we're dealing with art and technology, we're dealing with a situation sometimes that it's hard for us. And I've been meeting a lot of people recently that they are working for some years already in the Archviz sector. And they feel somehow tired. They feel somehow exhausted for many reasons. And this is dangerous because it shouldn't be this way. This job should be a job that is fulfilling us every day, that is making us feel more satisfied every day that's going by. So here we have invited to this panel 4 important characters. Each one of them represents or holds a perspective, a strong point of view in terms of how to assist or how to improve the practice of Archviz. And here the audience that we have today is mostly people that, as far as we know, they work freelancing, or they are very small firms, or they are architects that perhaps are thinking of moving professionally or finally into Archviz. So to all these people here that probably most of the times are facing alone the problem of how to get into this balance between art and technology. I would like to ask you, from your expertise, how did you manage to, in your practices or in the practices of the people that you know, how did you manage to keep in balance and produce such amazing work and still kind of be satisfied and strong every morning when you wake up and you go to the office? I mean, did I make myself somehow understood? I mean, I think we need to assist the audience here somehow and help them find a way how to improve their daily practice by combining these two concepts, art and technology. So I would like to ask you this, actually. How do you manage the everyday practice when a customer just breaks into your house and just is changing the way something you would like to do? So first of you, maybe Jeff, maybe Ron, whoever wants to talk first.
Okay, so welcome to everybody. Pretty exciting to be here, and this specific panel is really at the core of what I'm doing. In the past 2 years, I've been in this business since 2002, starting as a 3D design and exploration specialist in an architecture firm during my first year of architecture studies. So I did that for 3 years, and I decided that designing buildings and building them in the real world was not for me. That was the first conflict between my concept of architecture as an art form versus it being something that is an actual thing people need to live in. So in a sense, doing an artistic thing is an expression of your own passion, your own thoughts. It's not done specifically for someone, you just do it. So this is something I consider more of an art. But once you do something, design a building for people to live in, then it's not just art. It's something more than that. It's something in the real world. It's something that people need to live in. And when you make an image that represents that building, again, it's an art, but it's beyond that. You have to represent the building technically the correct way, and you also have to convey the idea of the building before it actually is being built. So again, I left architecture and I started doing visualizations, and you have the same conflict again. You want to make an image the way you want it to be. You have your thoughts about what is right, what is wrong, but again, you make the image for an architect or for a developer. He has his own concepts, he has his own reasons for showing that building. It could be for fundraising, it could be for city approval, it could be to sell the condominiums to the people that's going to live in them. So I've been doing visualization since 2005 as Polytown Media, and with the craft 2 years ago, we had this new concept, my partner and I. And we decided that to keep ourselves sane and to get to work with the passion and with the motivation to do the things that you mentioned, Victor, we had to change the concept of how we do business. And the concept was that we only have one client from now on. So the client is us, okay? We decided that we have to put the buffer between us and the client. We have to set the bar, we have to set the standards. And in order to do that, that's a hard work because we have to do R&D, we have to check new technologies, we have to think about what's going to be the next thing, the next technology that's going to be prevailing in our industry. And when we do the work, then we have this set of rules that we have to keep before even the client comes in and says what he has to say, okay? So we have internal reviews about the images, we do commenting about the images, someone plays the client, and one plays the studio role, and we have our own deadlines. If the client doesn't keep a deadline, we keep it for him. If the client doesn't manage the assets sending, like plans, sections, drawing, references, then we have a timetable set for them. You have to send this and this before this and this date so we can keep the deadline. And even though it's rigorous and it's hard, it took us actually 2 years to come to a point that we are really smooth running this way, and clients are kind of like, they don't look at us in an awkward way, like you set the deadlines for us, we have the deadlines for you, right? So right now, our clients are educated in that way. They actually feel the benefits of this kind of process, because we have this motto like, relax, we've got you covered, okay? We got you covered. They know that we keep the deadlines for them, we keep the order for them, and in the end, the images are I mean, the quality is the same quality. Yeah, I mean, the images is not even an issue, because they know the images are going to be great, okay? But it's the process, okay? So once the process is being controlled this way, then a lot of the issues you mentioned, pricing, changing things at the last minute, you just kind of like slowly remove them from that.
I think one of the, we could just like find a word, maybe anticipation. Could be a word that describes.
Yeah, it's, let me try to figure out how you say it in English. It's,
like foreseeing?
Yeah, it's like synchronizing expectations. Before you begin, you have to set the expectations correctly. What is our role? What is your role? What's the process in between? And so it's pretty clear what's going to be the end result and what's going to happen all the way towards that.
This works for, I mean, perhaps so kind of customers that you already know them, maybe because the your marketplace is, I mean, you know it quite probably. I mean, I don't know precisely where your clients come from, but you have to feel quite confident about anticipating what the client's going to ask you. And I would like to just forward this concept to the rest of the members. I mean, maybe any other of these panel works with a kind of future-telling strategies or anticipation strategies. What are your strategies when a customer is coming? I mean, maybe Nick or Victor.
Well, there's sort of strategies to manage their expectations. I mean, yeah, I guess.
Just bring closer your mic.
Within our company, every job is assigned a producer, and that producer's job is to sort of deal with and manage the client's expectations. And I guess it really is about sort of telling them about potential pitfalls, giving them enough in terms of like in the early stages of a project, showing kind of rough sketch ideas of what it is they're going to be receiving in the end. I mean, I guess there's always that kind of divide that a lot of clients want to see and want to make judgments on the finished product, but you want to get them to make decisions before you've invested all of that time in actually in doing all the hard work. So it's that kind of just finding different techniques to get them to make decisions earlier. So in still images, for instance, as much as possible, we'll do that thing where you set up sort of rough block cameras, you get the kind of the rough kind of composition right, but then also send over a kind of a version of that image with sketches, with sort of scribbles on top, which show where people are going to be, what the kind of essential narrative components of that image are, as well as then kind of other photographic references of lighting and kind of mood studies, kind of ideas about how the buildings are going to appear. And then sort of send that over and then sort of probably talk it through with them on the phone, because you want them to sort of build a sort of as close to the finished product idea in your client's head about what that's going to be. But I mean, again, different clients are different. So if you're dealing with an architect, for instance, as your client, then you can expect that they're going to have a good sort of ability to be able to visualize something from a basic form, whereas sometimes a developer will struggle to do that. But then again, you know, architects have their own sort of problems as well. Like they'll start to kind of fixate on.
What do you feel more comfortable with, architects or developers, for instance?
I'm not fussy, to be honest.
You don't mind?
They're just both, you know, different, and you treat them differently, I guess. You know, they've got different objectives or different.
You have pretty nice works with Bjarke Ingels. Some of these nice videos for the spiral and this this protection wall against the next hurricane or the next storm. And tell us a little bit. I mean, Was Bjarke actually going to your office and sitting next to you, telling you how to do things, or just let you decide your own way?
Bjarke is a really great client. I mean, he doesn't. I think he's been to our office a few times, but I mean, generally, his practice is sort of skyrocketing. So he tends to be very busy. And
So who's the worst one?
who's the what?
The worst one.
The worst client.
Yes. I mean, we're in a garden. I mean, the nice guys. Okay, we all love them.
Yeah.
We all want Bjarke as a client, probably.
I could tell you our worst ever client
Yes.
was a guy called Fardel.
Who?
A guy called Fardel.
Okay.
He was previously, we didn't know this at the time, and it was like about 2009, and the kind of recession was hitting, so we were slightly kind of desperate for work, and I think we probably should have known to kind of step out of the car when the car was a kind of a limo with champagne in the back, and it was a kind of deliberate attempt at seduction. Anyway, we took it on, and this guy Fardel, it turned out, we didn't know at the time, had previously been in jail for fraud, where he'd done some sort of timeshare sort of scam, and he was then also previous, Erdogan, who's now the current ruler of Turkey. He was the previous guy that ran that party, but had been done for tax evasion and been.
So when you're facing, that's a question I'm asking all of you. Maybe we can just jump to Victor to answer this question. When you're facing a tough situation, you choose your artistic skills or your technological skills? What's your best?
Hi, everybody. Well, honestly, I'm not a technical guy. Well, I use technology in my day life situation, but the thing is, for me, which is more important, is to use your brain. That's the most important thing. And I feel that when we have been more successful with our images or in certain projects, it's in our experiences. When you start to forget a little bit about the client and you focus in yourself, what you want is like, okay, this is you, these are your ideas, or what you want to express with what you do. So there's like a missing link between these two things, and you have to fill that with technology, expertise, art, direction, or anything.
So it's a mixture.
Obviously, it's a mixture. You can be super art passionate, but if you don't have, the right tools, or you don't know how to use them, you're in trouble, okay?
But when you are on the edge, right? I mean, at 3 a.m. in the morning, and you have the deadline in 2 hours.
No, we haven't been in our.
You never worked 3 a.m. in the morning.
No, never.
Wow.
We haven't done a night in Beauty and the Beat from the beginning, because we don't believe in that. I mean, it's.
Okay.
Other thing is that, for example, depending.
This is something you say a customer before.
Yeah, and
we're not working overnight.
No, obviously,
Okay.
and it's like.
That's important. I mean, everybody should do the same thing. We're not working overnight. That's a big rule.
And we don't.
So keep it in your.
and
He said.
No, and weekends. I mean, it's like obviously when you start, you have to work hard, and we did weekends. I'm not going to lie, but it eventually came a point in which it's like, okay, I don't plan to spend my whole life not living. I mean, or not enjoying my family and my friends and stuff. So, and obviously, if you're a creative guy, you have to have time to refuel. You can do this 24 hours and with non-stop. You have to be fresh. So the thing for me is like when you face a client and it's like, okay, you want that. This is your conception of your project, but you came to us. Why? Because you like our style, because we are sexy guys, or I don't know. I mean, it's I don't know why you came to us, but supposedly.
Yeah, but you didn't answer me. I was asking how you're facing difficult situations.
Oh, difficult situations. Well, if you're stubborn, I mean, it's like, okay, we have to do this. Okay, we have, for example, this kind of last-minute changes. We do the majority of our work is competition, is architectural competition. We do hate, for example, retail thing. We did something, but we hate that. because it bores us. And the thing is, like in competition, architectural competition, you have this kind of things. The best, the worst part of the process is architects. We are like really complicated human beings, and the thing is like normally architects, we design based on what we see. There are several things that, for example, we have in mind in first place. Okay, this could work this way. They say, for example, the first draft, and it's like, oh, it's not working. But it's not working, not the image. What is not working is the design. So they change that. So then you're screwed up. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, depending on what technical decisions you took or artistic decisions you took, it must force you to change completely the workflow.
And every step of the way, the rendering loses. Do you think it is losing quality?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It loses freshness.
Okay.
It loses freshness.
So that's bad.
Yeah, absolutely. And we always try to communicate that to the client. And each time we try to fight more with the client. What I think a good practice is, in general, and in all aspects in life, is to fight. I mean, not taking anything for granted. It's like, okay, you want this, you're my client, I respect you, and I'm going to try to do what is best for your project, your product, whatever it is, okay? But you have to fight a little bit. It's not a question of, we are here, we are robots, and we do what you want. It's like, we are here, we're professionals, we have a talent, or at least we have studies in composition and values in how should something look good. So we're talking from at least at the same level.
So I'm going to ask Jeff, why do you think architects or customers in general do not follow our recommendations?
Well, I think they have their own agenda. They have what they envision in mind. But I think one of the things that our industry, I think, struggles with is, I guess, establishing ourselves as experts in the field and portraying that to the client. I mean, certainly you have to listen to them. It's a conversation you're having with your client. But if you set a precedent of working through the night, or you allow them to dictate everything, like Victor was saying, not communicating to them that, look, you're the experts in this field. We know what needs to be done. You need to trust us. And if you can build that rapport, I think that's an important part. But if you allow them to dictate everything, and they say, well, you've got 2 hours to finish, you got to work through the weekend, then that's...
So how can you protect yourself when you are alone in the road? Because you probably this is something that is shared by most of us, but you are alone in your studio and facing your customer. And where do you get the strength to say, hey, man, just listen to me, because what I have to say is good for you. Where do you get the strength from?
I think it's confidence. You need to be confident in what you do.
Yeah, but you can't be just confident and that's it. I mean, where do you take that confidence?
I can suggest something, if I may.
Sure.
Something I started to do like on a constant basis. So obviously you have your clients right now, so you don't want to rock the boat, okay? With some clients, they are repeat clients, you work with them for a long duration of time, and they are accustomed to something. So if you started with working nights with them, taking that,
you can't change that
taking
now.
that back,
Yeah.
that's worsening the working conditions. So they would look like you would be frowned upon, okay? But you have a new client, okay? You never worked with him before. So just try something, okay? So from time to time, we like triple the fees, or like quadruple the fees, okay?
Remember this,
we
triple
we
the
have
fees.
we have work, we have the
Second
flow,
important rule, do not work overtime, triple the fees.
okay? Try it. Just try it. It's a new client. If it's not working,
He can
you
always say
didn't
no.
lose something. It's
Maybe
if
he's
it
so
works,
stupid enough that doesn't know
if
about
it works,
fees.
you've set the standard. Okay, so you can say we're not working nights. I mean, it's a little problematic because we work with clients all over the world. Okay, so what's working overnight? Okay, when I work with a client in New York, like for me, it's like they wake up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon for us.
Okay.
So it's not uncommon, like 1 o'clock at night, 2 o'clock at night, 3 o'clock at night. We get like a barrage of emails with comments, and they would like expect something like to happen, right? So it's a little bit problematic. But I would say don't be afraid to say no. It's okay to say no.
Okay.
Actually, you have to say no from time to time.
Okay. Jeff.
You should be selective when you say no, but you should be you should allow yourself to say that. and just try to.
But you have to pay the bills.
Yeah, I know. So triple the fees with the new client. Okay, I mean that try it. Okay, and for those of you that do competitions, I don't know if you ever thought about this kind of concept. I tried it. It works. We didn't get any money from it yet. Okay, but my position is that I don't want to fight with a client. I want to be a teammate. I want him to think of me as a teammate.
Okay.
So, for example, when we get approached by a client who does a competition, we say, okay, we have a method of doing competitions. You don't pay us any money, okay? But if you win, we get a percentage of your retainer for that project, okay? So in that instant, you've done two things. You've become a team member, and you are now highly motivated to do the best work that you can do.
Okay.
So you probably will work overnight. You probably will work over the weekend, because it's
I used
also
to work
your
that way, and I lost all my contests with my customers.
Okay, I mean, obviously you have to win.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, but the if you look at the business and at the money that you can get from winning one competition and maybe losing 9 of them, you would get more money than doing all 10 competitions the usual way.
Okay.
Okay, so it's maybe a new approach, but we did this twice. We didn't win. I mean, the architect didn't win. We are pretty selective with which competitions we do it. So, for example, it has to be a few offices that approach. So, like 4 offices competing for building something. So you have like a high percentage chance of winning that, and the return could be really big.
Okay.
Okay. So it's trying to change how the business around this works, so that the dynamics also change. Okay. So it's not client and studio and fighting and comments at the last minute.
Just
Okay,
building a
it's
sort
like
of
we're
relationship.
working together. We're working together towards the same goal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there's always this conversation. Like, we need to change the design. Will you be able to meet the deadline? If not, okay, so let's try it differently. So it's a relaxed conversation with two parties that are part of the same team, wanting to reach that same goal, to win the competition.
Okay. That's
Okay.
what I do.
So that's
everything
another
with
idea.
with my girlfriend every morning. Yeah, sure. We have a question here, but somebody can give this guy a mic, please. Or if you have a loud voice. No. Give it to. We have 4 microphones for the audience, so there should be a mic for this gentleman.
My name is Mustafa from Turkey, Istanbul. I have a company, a visualization company, sure. And when you triple the fees, or when you get the percentage from the contest, do you pay your guys the same amount of that, or you pay the same salary?
You mean the guys at the studio?
Yes.
I mean, the salary is a salary, okay?
Yeah,
I mean, you don't triple the salary because you triple the fees. That's not going to
That
work.
was my question.
That's not going to work, no.
There-
But yeah.
There are studios.
But
who-
obviously, you triple the fees, then the entire studio benefits, because now you can dedicate more money towards R&D, you can dedicate more money towards studio activities, you can do like after hours like training or lectures, and you just can go for a field trip, you can like fly to some country and visit the architecture.
But how do you motivate your guys? We have to. They work
Let's
on the
Jeff
overnight.
answer that question now.
So there are studios in the U.S. who, will inevitably get a client that will call them on Friday night at 7 p.m. and say, "Hey, can you deliver something for Monday?" And most of the larger studios, like Victor Works, don't work weekends unless they have to. But what they will do, though, is they will send an email out to all of the staff and say, "Look, we've had this client come in. Is there anybody who's willing to work? We'll pay a bonus for you to come in on the weekend," because they're also going to charge a premium to that client because they've come to them last minute. So you have to bill for your time. If the client wants to, come at you last minute and you've got to, rush this through the weekend and you've got to get people to work the weekend, well, they need to pay, and then you should equally compensate the staff, I think, as well. It gives them incentive to want to come in on the weekend as well. So I think it...
Yeah, we do that too. In our office, we always say to clients, we don't work nights or weekends. We need a life. But if they want to come and they want us to work at night or weekend, we give our guys in the office double their salary for the amount of they work.
I think it's important to set an expectation for a client that, you know, there has to be some sort of a penalty, if you want to call it that, you know, for working that way. Otherwise, they'll just abuse you. If they know that they can come to you on a Friday night at 8 p.m. and you're going to deliver on Monday, they're always going to do that, and you're always going to be working those kinds of hours. So I mean, there needs to be understanding that, okay, yes, we will do this, but there's going to be a cost to doing that.
Do you think, guys, that company size eases things up, or just worsens things up?
Thank you.
I mean, here we have big company, over there small firm.
Size of the Archviz studio or size of
Yes.
the client studio?
Both.
Both.
I think having a larger company does allow you to be more flexible about how you deal with sort of changing demands of clients. But I mean, I think that even if you're a big company, you still have to manage their expectations. I think that is about within the kind of contractual sort of beginning of a job, defining as clearly as possible what your scope within that project is, and that could be you could sort of define it or limit it by time. So, you know, we will finish at this date, therefore you have to work within this schedule. You know, we will deliver interim kind of images for feedback or film for feedback, and you have to give us feedback by a certain time. Then, you know, if we're late, then we're culpable. If they're late in that feedback, they're culpable. And it's just about sort of being as clear as possible. The other sort of big one is that I think Archviz gets caught up in is that undefined design scope. So are you just visualizing a finished design, or are you expected to play a role in that design? And that is a particularly sort of difficult one to nail down. Mm-hmm. I mean, if it's like a finished building where there are kind of working drawings that define every kind of nut and bolt, maybe it's sort of clearer. But a lot of the time, if it's like a master plan project where the architects got to a level where it might just be sort of massing model, kind of zoning, street layout, but none of the kind of details have been designed, then inevitably you're going to have to do a huge amount of kind of fill-in, kind of aesthetic design to make the thing look like it should. But within that, you've got to define a scope, because that could, if you don't control it, that process could go on for years. If you don't,
I think you bring up a really good point. In a couple of years ago, GCArchitect did a survey, and we asked people in the industry how many of them use contracts. 50-60% do not use contracts, and I think everybody's really afraid that if they do if they give a client a contract, you know, you're going to scare them away. I mean, contracts aren't meant to be this big legal thing to scare them away. They're meant to manage expectations. So, you know, they know when things are going to be delivered, and if they aren't delivered, or if you don't deliver on a certain time, or they don't deliver pieces of the project on a certain time, then this is what will happen. It's not meant to penalize. I mean, certainly those types of clauses are in a contract, but for the most part, it's meant to, ensure everybody is on the same page. And I think more people need to use.
Do you think it should be mandatory to make contracts?
I think it's smart business.
But while there's someone that is not doing contracts,
but
you're not. I mean, you don't have to neither.
It's a document that protects both sides. It's not. I mean, you can understand this without a contract, or at least in my head, it's like. We are professionals, so you have to establish some rules that protect not only you, but the client. Because if you don't follow these guidelines, in the end, what worries me most is the image, is the product, because it's what I felt passion for. So if the image is, in the end, if the process is not well followed, the image is going to be a shitty thing. So, and I don't want that. So obviously the contract is not, you don't have to be afraid for that, never. It's something that protects your...
I'm not afraid.
No, I was talking, generally. You never had to be afraid of it.
We have a question from Albert.
Yeah, I have a question. I know that everyone has to work with a contract, but what happens when the client sends his contract? You have your contract, but the client says, "Okay, I have mine. It's better than yours."
Normally we don't sign it. We had like problems in the past with that. because normally, I mean, some of those contracts are really abusive. Yeah, abusive, and we don't want to do that thing. I mean, it's like, okay, if you want to work with us, I mean, this world is full of professionals, and you can choose the one that you want. But if you want to work with us, the rules are these. And also, I agree with Nick, and it's really important from the very beginning to let the client know which are the guidelines or the rules or what they can expect, because those architects or clients or whatever are used to work with different companies which have different philosophies or way or workflow. So normally they think that you are going to react to some changes or some demands the same way this other company reacted, exactly. And that's not the case. That is why it's really important in the beginning, before the beginning of the process, to let them know, okay, guys, if you work with us, these are like the little steps that we have to do to make this successful in the end.
Javier.
If you read the contracts of some really well-established companies in the industry, it's funny because it reads as a history of every mistake they've ever made.
Yeah.
Javier.
Just one point. It's okay. We're putting sort of quite a lot of emphasis on the contract, but the contract is kind of the legal bit that kind of backs up all the other components of organising a project. And you don't generally go to the contract unless something sort of goes wrong or something becomes unclear. But as well as the contract, you've got the other kind of more friendly tools like a schedule. And
I just want to ask the audience if you can raise your hands. If there are some professionals here in the field of Archviz, how many of you just do contracts with your customers? Well, that's pretty...
But about 50% that aren't. There's a lot of people that aren't.
You think it's a high percentage or
no? It's a low one.
It's a low percentage.
I would suggest, if I may, kind of like bringing it back to the core, like about art and technology. So if you think about art and if you think about what it is that motivates you doing what it is you do, so try to establish a framework that actually makes you feel good about what it is that you do. So when you think about that, having a legal contract is setting that kind of environment for you. You know that you are covered on that area, so you can focus on the work, okay? You don't have to think about all the things that can go wrong and what will happen then. Just do it, set it aside, and focus on the actual work.
We have Andras, you want to say something?
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I think it's about two things. One, to have a contract to feel comfortable, and not to have, you have something in your back, and it can be really simple. Even an order form can be a contract with some, rules. But secondly, if you want to make sure what you are doing and the scope of work is fixed, it has to be not in the contract, because it's just overcomplicate things. You don't know, before you bid, what you are doing, what you are going to do. So I believe the other part, which is kind of contrast or making the deal with the client, is to understand the client from the first conversation, from the kickoff meeting, and figure out, and maybe write it down on email with them and agree with them. And then you have the contract and you have some kind of agreement.
Yeah, the project brief, like what it is that's going to happen.
And that's actually more important. Of course you need a contract because you cannot be in an unprotected situation.
Do you reject clients?
Yeah.
And what percentage?
I fire them too, from time to time. No, really, I mean, again, you have to feel good about what it is that you do. So if you have a client and you have friction and you try to get them to the workflow that you believe that is right for you, I mean, you can't always change what you do because a client kind of like takes you there. Okay? Because then you're all over the place.
But then again, to the audience, how many of you could actually permit themselves to reject the client? That's even lower.
I think you should reject clients when it comes.
So why don't we somehow find a way to help people reject more clients than they do? How could we assist them? How can we manage?
You can ask a simple question. I mean, when someone approaches you and asks you for a proposal for a project, okay, do you immediately send it, or do you do a Google search and you try to figure out who's that client, what kind of projects he did, okay, how well established easy in terms of, you know, fees that you can just. So do you do the research before you send the proposal, or do you just send it? So that's one thing, for example.
Yeah. Okay. Well, okay, yeah. Patricio has something to say.
Hello. For example, I think that bank client is always complicated, and having a contract not necessarily means that you will execute. Because to take the political decision of sue a client is a major decision. So being legally protected not necessarily means that you are going to fire, okay? So that is one thing. And we only sue a client once, okay? Because we have like Squint Opera, a very difficult client. They abused us and said, okay, and we finally won and we get the money. But when we have a client who is traditionally a complicated client, what we used to do is like what runners do. Okay, my fees is, I don't know, 1,000. Okay, this client, I'm going to charge 2,000. We double that. Is a nice way to not being tough in ban that client, but if he's going to accept those conditions, okay, I'm being covered. Okay. So.
Okay.
Can I say something on that?
Sure. Go ahead.
I think one of the kind of if you're in any doubt, I mean, if you've got a client that you have a long relationship and you trust, then that's fine. But if you're in any doubt about that dealing with them might be tricky, one sort of fail-safe technique is just to make sure you're always in the black, i.e., like you've got enough money in early, so you don't start the project until you've had an initial sort of first payment, and then make sure you've never done more work than you've been paid for. That way, regardless of the contract, they then have to come to you to get that money back, and it's a sort of counter-suing sort of situation which we've never got into, and you know, but it just means that you know you're not in that situation where you're struggling to, and they use that kind of the fact that you're in debt and the money that they owe you is important to you. As a means to kind of get more out of you. So it's just making sure that you're always in credit on that job. Okay.
Javier wants to say
so
something.
It's more about having the money of the client rather than a contract. No, that's from our experience. We ask for a retainer. If we have a retainer, it's okay. Everything is smooth. So do you guys ask for a retainer? I guess not to everyone, but it's a common practice.
Yeah. Victor? Or Jeff?
Well, yes, about clients, talking about this kind of rejecting clients, I think is in our case, it's just a matter of trial error. I mean, you work with new clients, and obviously it's like a new adventure. You don't know them, and they don't know you. So obviously it came in our case sometimes, not so many, but sometimes. We experience, and you know, tying this with the art thing that we were talking, you experience that during all the process, you were unhappy, okay? You were unhappy, and regardless that pays dues, okay? But I think that nowadays we can pay dues doing something that fulfills us. So the point is, okay, how do I felt during this process with this new client? Okay, it was horrible. It was like, so next time they approaches us, it's like, okay, our schedule is full, and normally it is, that's the case, but it's like I'm not going to fight to include in the schedule because I felt really bad working for you. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you don't say that to the client, but you should, no, sure. Okay, or at least normally when things didn't go as smooth as we would like to, when we finish a project, I write an email to the client and I say, okay, guys, I think that this project should have been better if we, for the next one, we took these considerations because we're trying to protect the product, which I want to be like proud of what I did for you, but first for me. Okay, mm-hmm. And that's the thing. Normally, when something goes not so smooth in the process, in the end of the process, I write an personal email to you know the guys in mm-hmm. the studio.
Do you feel that your, feelings or your satisfaction is being eroded as time goes by with your practice? I mean, I mean, we're saying something a little bit sensitive. We were talking about this yesterday night.
Yeah.
And I think I just want to elevate it to the public. I think people is getting exhausted in this industry, and I think outside clients or whoever is getting profit out of this, you know. And if it's getting constantly renovated by young people who are just brand new and wanting to, you know, get projects, what happens with the old guys who are just exhausted? You're just tired of facing situations. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out how the majority of people could feel, especially in this country, Spain, which has probably a very particular reality in terms of relationship with clients. You know, probably it's difficult for them to change the clients they have, and if they can't change those clients, probably they would never change their practice. You know, so how can you deal with this situation, especially here? Probably you come from realities that are different from us. You know, maybe in the United Kingdom things work differently, or maybe for companies who reached to work for international customers. But most of us do not have international customers. Actually, customers living next door, and you have it every day knocking on your door. Hey. So how can you deal with this situation? Don't you think that maybe they're a little bit trapped? And they need something, an escape way, you know, to improve their practice. What can we tell them to exit this situation?
I think this kind of an event is a good start. I don't think that architecture visualization has this kind of collective or like a group knowledge that involves things that are beyond just the artistic and technological part. I mean, people share work on forums, they get feedback, they write tutorials about how they do the things that they do, but I don't see too much or enough discussion about the business, about hiring, studio culture, dealing with clients, project management. I mean, each one of us, if he's a freelancer or if he is running a studio, is a businessman also. Okay, you're not just a 3D artist. Okay, you're a businessman.
Mostly without business education.
Exactly. Okay,
and that's a big problem.
Nobody teaches you that, and you have to learn it as you go. So doing this kind of an event and maybe building towards becoming such a collective in a way that, I mean, in a sense, we're shooting ourselves in the leg, because young people coming into this industry, they usually take lower fees because they can afford it. Okay, they don't have a family, they don't have kids, they don't have business. Okay, and the clients take advantage of that. Okay, the images we can produce today in terms of quality are far better than like 5-10 years ago when I got started. I mean, almost everyone can produce a decent image.
I disagree with this.
No,
I will tell you why, but I disagree with this.
Almost everyone can produce a decent image today with less time and less training.
I'm going to tell you something. I mean, the amount of effort I had to invest for making one single image 15 years ago compared to the effort that somebody could do an image today, it's like a million times bigger and larger. So that not reflected directly on the quality, because, you know, the resources and the software and everything in the past was quite different. So actually today it's very easy to do 3D renderings.
That's what I mean.
It's very, even my grandmother would do 3D renderings. And
it's
she's
easy,
dead.
and because it's easy, a lot more people can do it, and a lot more people can charge less for it. Okay, so you're competing on a different level. You have to compete on, not on the image, you have to compete on the service you provide.
Exactly. The image will not, So, Victor.
Yeah, but I have to say about this topic, it's like, nowadays it's really, or everybody can do what we call a render. I hate that word. And the thing is like, I agree with that, but it's different to do an iconic image than doing a render. It's really difficult. The iconic image has a lot of things behind, and doing a render, yes, sometimes it's like a technical thing. Okay, I mean, what I mean is you have to give something different in what you do. Okay, you have to conceptualize what you are given.
And you need an iconic building, and you need an iconic customer.
But not always. No, I don't agree with that. I mean, sometimes we have done images that we're really happy with them, and the project is not so big thing, you know. It's not so big thing, but the story that you tell with that project, and maybe sometimes little studios are more like receptive to what you communicate them. Okay, maybe guys, if we choose this, it's for example what you were talking before about the client. How do you say or neglect something to a client, or which tools do you use? No, because you were asking to the people to say no something to a client. I think the best way, or what we do normally, and sometimes works, not all the times, but sometimes work is an image worth a million words. And we work on images, so I have to explain you that this is a better image or a better composition of the camera or a better color scheme. I will send you some sketches about this. It's really rough, really quick, and you will see this is your camera, and you will see this is ours, and maybe. And we explain you technically and orthodox.
So we're going back to art and technology, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're just like teaching your customer how to understand,
it's like,
what should be, aesthetically correct,
yeah,
and performed in a decent amount of time and with decent resources.
Yeah.
Maybe Jeff has something to say.
I think you have different types of clients and you have different types of companies. There are clients that I would hazard a guess couldn't tell the difference between a 3 out of 10 image and a 10 out of 10 image. So whether you bring, an exceptional level of, art to the table or skill set to the table, they're not going to appreciate it. So the companies that traditionally deliver, they're a takeout window for renderings. That's the match there. The companies like the Squints and whatnot that, understand in the beauty and the bits and the craft, that understand the industry a little bit better, I think have a different conversation with the client. The client's looking for something different. They're not just looking for, just send me an image and, we're off to the races. I mean, there's a much bigger goal to a problem to solve with that image or that film.
Yeah.
So it's a much different conversation.
Yeah. Nick, please.
So just going sort of back to that point about how, if you're an older guy within the industry, how do you get valued for all of that experience? And I think there is a kind of a question about how our role within the kind of the world of architecture and cities is valued, and early on we were just talking about a kid can come straight out of college, learn a bit of software, and then he can make images just as good as you. But it's a bit like saying an architect can just come straight out of college, learn how to use a CAD program, and make buildings just as good as you. So just learning a bit of software is not that's not all you end up with after sort of 15 years of working in an industry. It's that whole kind of thing about knowing how the industry works, how to sort of deal with developers, how you relate to architects about their designs, how you bring their designs out, and all of that takes time, and maybe it's not kind of appreciated enough. And I think maybe one of the sort of points we should talk about at this this event is how we value what we do. I mean, it's a bit like if you give someone if someone contains a box with wonderful things in it, and you have the key, do they buy that key off you for the value of the cost of cutting a key, or do you get something of the value of what's in the box? It's that kind of getting our experience and knowledge appreciated within the industry.
Yeah.
I think is
Don't you think maybe that now I'm just remembering when I was studying at school, college, the first years, our teachers showed us a picture of one of the buildings of Le Corbusier. I think it was the Ville Savoie, but I'm not sure. The nice thing of that picture was black and white. It was shot in the 20s or the 30s. It was not the building, it was the building and the car next to it, the car of the same years. And you could see, wow, it's the same year, the building and the car. And you couldn't believe that, okay? So now, 25 years later, I understand why this teacher just showed us that picture. Which is to say that architecture has a value. And it's already more than 100 years that architects are just like fighting for that value. And Le Corbusier was ahead of time. And after him came a lot of people following and doing nice architecture. The thing is, perhaps we, in 3D rendering or architectural visualization, we are somehow at the very beginning as well. It's just like maybe 20 years of history. So it could be compared to the beginning of modern architecture as well. Because before, architects were just like following the orders of their customers, generally speaking. With modern architecture, the architect behaves differently. Said the client, listen, we don't want walls, we just put some pillars in here. And you have to trust me that the building is not going to fall down. Okay, and they succeeded. And now you see amazing, ugly buildings all over the world just because architects succeeded to, convince the customers that this shit has to be there. So they're very good salesmen, actually. So how can we do? Can we do the same? Can we just like somehow enter a new era of convincing the customers of our shit, to give them our shit, and they pay millions for that? Yes. Yeah? Okay, tell us how.
I think we're probably in the kind of early stages of doing that, and as probably as much as kind of other companies are. But I mean, obviously, when we started working within this kind of sector, we were kind of teenagers out of college with not much experience, and as we've sort of grown up, we've got families, so our employees are all getting older and have like higher expectations, and you have to pay them or lose them to other industries. So that struggle to be recognised for what we bring is obviously kind of fundamental to what we do. One thing, there's actually, I think the word visualization is a bit kind of restrictive in some ways, because in a way visualization is a particular technique of taking a building, a design, and visualizing it. So it's kind of like realizing or making, being able to see it, helping people to see it. But then there are kind of so many other kind of aspects to communicating a building, which are, telling a story or bringing out what's important, or kind of all of the other kind of communication issues around a building.
So visualization will matter something as long as people cannot mentally visualize buildings, right? Mm. So what will happen that day in which any single person in the street will be capable to imagine a building without having a picture in front of him? That will be the end of visualization?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't think
because
that's going to happen.
Every day that happens, every day it passes, people in the streets are more proficient in whatever comes to be visual. They're trained. They have a lot of information going to their minds, and maybe they're, overfed with images. You know what I mean? So there might be a day, maybe sooner than we expect, that our images will not have the effect that we want them to have, and nobody will want them anymore. So if that day happened, what will happen with us?
I don't ever envision that happening. I think as long as there will be architecture, there will be a medium to communicate what that architecture will look like, or how to market it, or how to communicate design process. I mean, that's just inherent part of design.
So you are subordinate to architecture.
Sorry?
You are subordinate to the fate of architecture. You're saying that.
As long as you're doing architecture visualization, yeah. I mean, you can do it.
Isn't that a way to have all the eggs in the same basket?
I don't think so.
Because architecture is changing. I mean, nowadays there are more architects who don't need visuals. And
the architects don't need the visuals, but the clients, the public, the decision makers. If you want to raise money for building some kind of public building, you need to show what's it going to look like, what's it going to feel like. So there will always be the audience that you have to convey the idea to them.
Yeah, but I know what you mean. But as long as there is an intermediate, which is the architect, which is the customer, you're depending on him.
I think
so how can you jump him and go straight to the audience?
I mean, we deal more with developers, I guess, as the audience than architects probably. But there's also.
I mean, buildings are for people, users. their customers use buildings. Our customers use renderings, but it's something like they use and throw away. Maybe they keep them on their websites, but it's just a one shot. You know what I mean? Instead of that, a house stays not forever, but for a lifetime. You know, it's something different. You know, how can we just help visuals to somehow resist the passing of time, as houses, as buildings does?
But in some way, I mean, there's always, I mean, architects need some imagery, something to show their concepts. I mean, it's really important what we add to that, because they have their designs in their heads. They have like elevations, sections, cross sections, whatever. Okay, but that is something abstract that only understand technical people. Okay, but they want, I think they want, or they have the need to show that to the clients, families, friends. Okay, this is what I have in my mind, and then it comes. Then we come to that point. I mean, then we appear, and answering if they're going to, I mean, you're always going to need something visual. For example, in cinema, when they're going to do something, a big picture or whatever, and they're going to construct a set, or they're going to make visual effects or whatever, what comes first? Comes
but remember 3D movies, just like, or the IMAX technology, just like.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, before that happens, there's a guy that paints. It's really something.
So back to the origin. So why do you need a computer? You could do water paintings. Yeah. Because if you go back to the art, to the craft, I mean, you don't need that much. If you want just like to express a single idea, it's actually faster. Do it with a pencil or with a watercolor. It's faster and maybe more interactive with the customer.
It could be, but then you have to remember that the way you convey the idea is kind of a language. So if you go back a few years before computers, people would understand the watercolor drawing, okay? And we've seen it a lot, architects doing watercoloring to showcase the work. But as the years progress and the young people are exposed to mobile phones, and you don't know what's going to happen like 5 years from now, they are more accustomed. Their language is CG.
But
so you can't really show them stuff. Like
why do I suspect, why do I have this suspicion that architects or customers in general respect more a watercolor than a 3D render?
So I was just on a panel in Boston a few weeks ago with one of the lead designers, Moshe Safdie, and that exact question came up, whether or not there was a different respect for illustration of architecture when it was a traditional medium versus a digital medium. I think maybe to a certain degree, yes. But I think that's changing and has been changing for a while. I think the problem is the origins of the 3D side of visualization started as a very technical exercise, and as a result, became almost a commodity rather than an artistic process. Most of the people that started in 3D, 20 years ago, were not what I would call artists. They were more technicians, and as a result, what was delivered was a little bit sterile, a lot sterile.
Daniel has something to say, maybe a reply. Daniel from University of Madrid is going to be in the third panel.
Hello, everyone. I really agree with you with this disruptive scenario in the future, when people maybe, it's not that they don't need renderings or image visualization and that, but for example, in the field of architecture photography, it's already happening something very interesting, no? That photography, it's at the end a medium that has been like only a professional medium right now. It's only through publications, blogs or books and whatever. But the public, it's building the images of architecture through Instagram, For example, the last website of OMA is working with images that are not images of photographers, images from Instagram. And I think this is really, really disruptive in the photographic field. how this could happen, something
maybe
similar.
photographers,
No?
I mean, they're in a worse position than ours, maybe.
I mean,
because now every day everybody can just like shoot a nice picture with the actually, you know, the ads of iPhones and the other ground. You see the shot with an iPhone, and it's a wonderful picture.
But actually,
if I was a photographer, I would be a little bit depressed.
BIM technology and real-time rendering could. This is like speculation, okay?
So
but
technology,
could get to this
technology
one.
is killing art. I mean, it will not be needed anymore.
I haven't said that.
I think what you're talking about is the democratization of the medium. I mean, the same thing could be said of photography. When we moved from film to digital, everybody, you know, assumed that the whole industry would die because everybody could pick up a digital camera. But just because you know how to use a tool doesn't mean you know how to use it effectively. So yes, there will be cases where architects will start to do a lot more, you know, early visualization in-house because the tools at some point will be like a camera. So it will meet their need. It doesn't need to be this pretty thing. They just need to visualize something. But I don't think that removes the craft at the higher levels. I mean, I think there is certainly a big segment of our industry that right now are experts in a software.
Mm-hmm.
If your business is built around the fact that you are an expert in a software, then of course in time I think that's a problem for you. But I don't think the craft will ever go away. I mean, there will always be a need.
We have 10 minutes for the end of this panel. I think it's at 12 a.m. We have to go to the next one. So
one comment, please, Victor. Okay. Over here.
Sorry. Yeah.
On your right, I'm over here.
Okay, so there's another mic over there. Okay,
it's
sorry.
Josh.
Okay.
I was just going to say.
Hi, Josh.
I think if anything, it makes the craft more important. If it's that easy to create these images and do a good job, it's more important that you can do an even better job.
Yeah. Okay. Good point. We'll talk about it later. Sorry, I can't reply because we are just about to end up the panel. Another intervention over there, or just change his mind? The mic is not working. Any other mic, please? So before the mic gets there, okay, just wait a few seconds.
Hi, thank you. I'm working in architectural visualizations since 1986.
Wow, that makes you a senior.
Okay, I just want to help you guys with a small idea. It's neuropsychology. When you deal with clients, I just want to add something to Jeff's comments. I think when we are creating, we're using alpha waves. Our brains are in the alpha wave mood. And when we're talking about money, we are in gamma waves. It's a completely different psychological feeling and situation we're in. I just want to suggest when you talk about money with clients, just tell them you call them back in an hour, you prepare yourself, get in the other wave. Like it's going on the shower where you sing, where you feel free, and you're in the shower because you feel protected and you can be creative. And at the same time, you just cannot be creative and 3 minutes later talk with the client about money. It's impossible.
It's impossible.
Yeah, there's a little thing, a little detail I wanted to add. And
do you think
I hope you
do you think clients know about this?
They don't, well, I'm saying this is not in books. I'm only interested what's not in books. And this is something typical, practical advice I would give you.
It's a chain of gamma waves.
Yeah, so if my guys in my team say they have some problem with correcting things, give it to me. I'll talk to the client. I'll just piss him off. And
how did you manage to resist 30 years? Yeah. 30 years?
Well, I
Where's your office?
My in Zurich. My clients got rich. I didn't got rich, but I'm very self-fulfilled and very happy with my life. But I'm very free and I'm working with wonderful people. So
well, let me tell you that from now on you can just like sit in the front row because actually I think it's a very special guest we have here. Nice surprise actually. So thank you for coming, by the way.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We're okay. Last intervention and then we're gonna close.
Just to kind of expand on that, we used to. Like one director at Squint used to sort of do the client management and the creative direction, and it took us sort of a surprisingly large number of years before we realised that was a really bad idea, and that you kind of separate the creative director and the producer should be two different people, with different heads. And even sometimes a creative director might become a producer and talk money, but never on the same project because it's just too...
But that makes the freelancer a kind of a Superman.
It makes
and I think that's
the freelancer.
Good.
It's true, yeah.
I mean, we're proficient in being freelancing in this country, I think. This is a country of freelancers. I mean, most of you just like enroll to this seminar by just alone, only just few groups of 2 or 3. Most of you are just came by on your own. So I somehow guess that you're freelancing.
Can the freelancer get their girlfriend or wife to do the negotiations for them?
But I have a
freelancing is a lifestyle.
I have a funny story on that. My grandfather was in sales for many, many years, and on his business card he would always put vice president because that way he could always defer to the president.
Okay, that's good. Well, I just want to make some sort of funny question. When we're going to see 3D renderings in museums?
That will depend on. I mean, it's not so impossible. It's related to what you said about the watermark. Why the watermark is more respected or traditional way? It's more respected that
watercolor.
Yeah, with watercolor, it's something.
No, because
similar.
Watermark is kind of a hated.
Watercolor. Sorry, watercolor. Why is it depends on the quality that globally us as professional decide to sum up to this field. And the museum thing is exactly the same. When the standards globally are rising, okay, eventually that will happen because it's another artistic manifestation.
Yeah, well, I'm not pretty sure about what you have said, but anyway, I will keep it in mind.
I think
you need to tell us, because I don't think the architecture visualization will be in art galleries, but art.
It should be already today, but
you have a problem with that because what we do is temporary. I mean, we can't avoid that. You do the visualization for a building that's going to be built. Once it's built, that's the end product. So what you did kind of goes to the sidelines. I mean, essentially. Uh-huh. So if we ever wanted to be recognized on that level, we have to build that ourselves. We have to be the ones that is going to do the pushing towards that, you know?
Exactly. So the question is how? Especially when you don't have time even for cook your own meal. I mean, how can you start thinking about these wonderful things? If you can just look, you have to go pick up your kids and then you're tired, you're not sleeping well, you have a lot of job in your office. I mean, I think this is, I mean, most of us feel trapped and in some sort of vicious circle. Okay. And it seems that the only way to exit this vicious circle is by losing money. You have to say no. You say you have to say no. But for most of us, saying no is a big thing. It's hard to decide that. So we're still on the same vicious circle. So any exit? Any I don't know, any suggestion?
We were talking about the power of the collective. You know, in the very beginning, we were talking about the power of the collective. In fact,
exactly. You read my mind.
Yeah, I know. Because, you know, we didn't have the time. But today, it's supposed that we were exhibiting here some of the work, not of us, of course, but some of the people that were coming. We had the chance to show the work today here in MACBA. That is one of the best museums in Europe. So we did miss the chance because we didn't have the power because we were not enough people.
Yeah, but to convince MACBA to give us this hall, we had to tell them that this meeting is going to be only talking about art. You know, so we lied to them actually. and you go to the architecture congress and you see the the ad or the article talking about us, and it's saying something that actually has nothing to do with what's going on here.
Yes.
Hopefully nobody is listening to us, but you know, I mean, we are in a place that maybe we don't deserve yet. So the situation should change in the years to come. In which museums like this one should call our doors more often to tell us, hey, please come and show us your work.
I think until our industry stops focusing on the technicalities of what we do and starts focusing on the fundamentals of what illustration is. Well, I mean, this is commercial illustration, so I think that by its very nature excludes it from being something in an art gallery, but I find our industry as a whole focuses too much on the technicalities and not enough on the fundamentals of what we do. As a result, I mean, we get very sterile images and not creative images as a whole.
Very good. So any last comments? Because now there's going to be a change of faces. Anything else? Any questions? Okay, we have one last question here.
No, I don't want a question. I just want to add something what Jeff said.
Yeah.
Is it working?
There are some mics that actually are just...
Yeah, we have like 8 mics.
Yeah.
I think this is working. I just want to say something what Jeff said. When we look at the art or an image, do we recognize it as a watercolor, pastel, oil, or we look at it as art? When we look at the image that we produce, we look at, hey, Corona, V-Ray, matte painting, how did he do it?
Yeah. It's a problem.
Once
it's a big problem.
we took render as a medium, like a watercolor, pastel, and then we can start to talk about the art. There is no way the same thing have the photographers have. Hey, did you do Nikon? Forget about that. It's an art. If you look at the computer, how it's evolved, computers start to evolve, helping to the people to make the jobs easier. It's been 20 years, it's like that. But for the first time in the era, with the iPad, with the Apple, computer starts to become a medium. When the kids start to use iPad, they never think that it's a computer. It's a medium. They can play with their hands. And when the computer reaches our process like the brain, we start to talk about the art and then how we can make the render in the galleries. There is no way, if we can't pass this process, this is the way we have to live, and then we can start to see our renderings in the museums and blah, blahs. Like same thing in the photography. When you look at the 50s, 60s photographers, they think about that dark rooms, chemicals, blah, blahs, exposures. Right now, the photographers, they have the Nikon, and then they get the best picture. They have to look at the composition and everything. If you think about 5 years ago, 3 years ago, V-Ray was our dark room. We have to look at the numbers. So many blah, blahs, blah, blah. This is
it's hypnotizing.
Yes, yes. We have to learn so many darkroom stuff to produce the image. Right now, within the next 2 years, 3 years, with the real time, we don't have to worry about the darkroom. We will focus on the composition.
Yeah, but this, I mean, with every new generation, this relationship with the tool, with the medium will change, you know.
Yeah, but we will bring the render as a medium to the art. And then we will talk about the...
Well, hopefully.
It will happen eventually.
Okay, one last intervention or two more interventions, then we go to the next panel.
I don't think this is working, but...
We have 4 mics that are just kicking us.
Well, I'll just talk loudly. It seems to be doing so. I think there is a distinct... I wouldn't really think of architectural visualization as art, per se, in that if you went to a gallery where you want to kind of see an exploration of an artist, it's not... I'd be very disappointed if I saw a series of images of a courtyard of a done for architectural visualization. I think for that our kind of craft to appear in art galleries, it has to do what you've done, which is basically go through that process of not taking on commercial work and creating art, like exploring art, and then that will find its way into art galleries. I don't think we're ever going to be sort of serving the needs of developers and architects and the kind of the world of architecture and expect that somehow someone's going to look at our images and think, I can understand more about the meaning of life by looking at those images. Let's put those in an art gallery.
Yeah, well, I think that there's a big difference between what you are asked to say when a customer wants an image from you with what you really want to say. It's 2 different things. So actually, from my humble opinion, I think that we have very little things to say. We have to find more things to say and say them out loud. Otherwise, nobody will listen to us.
But it's like adverts. You've never. There have been some really stunningly beautiful adverts made for all kinds of products, which show artistry. But I'd never want to go and see a beautiful Mercedes ad in a museum. And I think it's a bit like that with architecture visualization.
Okay.
I agree with you 100%. I think the one thing to add to that, though, is the fundamentals of what makes something you would see in a gallery good in that context are also the same fundamentals that would make a commercial visualization compelling and tell a good story.
Patricio?
Yeah, I totally agree with both, basically. And I would like to add something else, because when traditionally, when Ronen or Jeff put an image and they judge based on technically one dimension, that is pure quality under certain assumptions, basically. But our profession has multiple dimensions. For example, what is a good image? Okay, each one of us will have a different understanding on what is a good image. Someone will go with a more artistic and intentional image. Some others will go pure, hyper-realistic finishing. So each one has, there's no one single dimension. But for example, there's something else that you are not judging when you go to a museum and you see a Rembrandt, for example. You don't think, for example, how much time it took for Rembrandt to do that. But for example, in our industry, okay, imagine yourself, right now, what is the worst image that you see? Okay, it's a small exercise. Keep that image in mind, okay? And I've said, well, I did it in 1 minute. Wow, suddenly it is not so bad, okay, the concept, okay? At the same time, you take the Alex Roman job, okay, what he did in the animation, and said, it took me 65 years. Well, suddenly the chair doesn't look so real. So technically, it's a
You always have to
relative
consider
concept.
time. I mean, when you are just qualifying a specific job, time is always an important.
I think that time is always important if you would like to have the full picture, because it's relative.
But that's a sort of a technical assessment rather than a kind of artistic one.
Yeah, exactly. That's half of the panel. We're talking about that, technology, and maybe time management deals with technology actually, right? Mm-hmm. But being capable to deliver one image in 1 minute and the customer buys it, I mean, I found it quite artistic.
Yeah, of course. But
what do you think?
But is multiple things happening.
Most of my works, when I was working for commercial works, were done in 1 day.
I've got a question. So, if you create a sketch that took you a minute, and that sketch helps get a building built, should that sketch be sold for the same value as another image which took someone a year to create and also helps create the building? Which of those two images is more valuable? The one which took a minute, or the one which took a year, even though they both had the same actual impact and sort of power within the world they go out into?
I would like to answer that question because I learned it from a very senior person, and he told me that one day they were struggling with a big problem, okay, and nobody found the way to get out of that problem. So all the directors were in the meeting and said, "Well, I know a guy, okay, who probably can help us." So they called that guy. That guy came, and he said, "Okay, what is the problem?" They explained the problem, and they said, "Well, you need to put tomato, pineapple, and broccoli." And suddenly, it was obvious that he was right. "Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate you. Are the best. Blah blah blah. Please send me your invoice, okay, for this hour that you've been with us." Okay, the guy sent $150,000. And they said, "Well, it's a very expensive fee for an hour," okay? I said, no, you don't understand. I'm the one who brought the question that you have but it took me my whole life to have that synthesis, okay? And you came to me, and I give you the solution. But you are paying right now the fees of my experience along all these years.
Exactly. That's what we're talking about in terms of like, how do we value our
That should be in the contract.
Yeah.
Right?
Or
you
it
have
has
to put
be
in the
just way we
contract
deal-
that 20 years of,
project ourselves.
whatever, and you added the first row, and that's just 100,000 euros. And then you apply the hourly fee for the eventual tasks.
That answer is some way, because technically, when you have someone who can produce something really amazing in such a short time, okay, you must judge his work based on more than one single dimension. Okay, that is my point. So that is why it's so difficult. If you are going back to the question to the museum, it's very difficult to see, okay, in a museum all these different renderings, because the story behind the scenes is so difficult, okay, it's so dense that it was not fair only based on your judgment, based on what you have in front of you. That is my personal opinion.